Hey everyone, Andrew here, bringing you another video, and today we're finishing my top 20 countdown to my favorite comic book runs of all time. This is part 4, and if you really don't know what's going on right now, I suggest you go back a few videos to part 1, where everything will get explained. So with that said, we're doing picks number 5 to 1, my 5 favorite comic book runs of all time. So with that said, let's get into things. The first one, I'm not actually going to pull out any trades because his run kind of gets scattered throughout. Well, you'll see. I'm going to do, for number 5, on my favorite comic book runs of all time would have to be Dennis O'Neil's Batman run. Dennis O'Neil, I like to think of him as like the grandfather of Batman. A lot of people give Frank Miller the credit for making Batman dark again. But really, Frank Miller only brought Batman dark to the general public, where it was really Dennis O'Neil in the 70s that brought Batman back into that dark knight, dark detective, dark, anything. He really knows the character in a primal sense, the raw elements needed to make Batman. He brought him back from the campy crap that we were getting in. Well, maybe I shouldn't say campy crap, because some of the campy stories were fun, but the campiness on a whole was just not doing it for Batman. And Dennis O'Neil fixed Batman up. Some of my favorite stuff from him is his Ra's al Ghul stuff, Tales of the Demon. I loved his stuff on the Legend of the Dark Knights with like Batman Shaman. Him working as just an overall overseer of Batman stories was great, adding his own little flavor in there, and just on a whole, Dennis O'Neil, thank you. You brought Batman back to where he belongs in. Some of the best stories out there. So with that said, going on to number 4. Number 4 on my favorite there's a little spoiler. Number 4 on my favorite comic book runs of all time would be Paul Dini's run on Batman. See, I let it slip. I said Batman, didn't I? This consists of Detective, Death in the City, Private Case books. It also consists of the Resurrection of Ra's al Ghul, but that kind of more towards Grant Morrison stuff than Paul Dini. And then Heart of Hush, which I'm going to put in front here. Paul Dini. You are the man. Did anyone tell you that? You are the man. Paul Dini, really, he's one of my favorite Batman writers. I mean, Heart of Hush is my second favorite Batman story of all time. Paul Dini, the one thing you can say about him is where Grant Morrison understands the elements of Batman, Paul Dini understands the person of Batman and how he reacts with people. Paul Dini, this is like a renaissance man with Batman. He's done Batman movies, he's done Batman the Animated Series, Batman comics, video games. He's really done a lot with Batman, so he knows what the deal is. He knows what's going down. He also done stuff on Justice League Unlimited, so Paul Dini is really a renaissance man when it comes down to Batman. I know I say this a lot with some people, but he understands Batman. He understands Batman personally as a person. He understands the characters of Batman. He writes his supporting characters great. He does new, innovative stuff with old villains like the Riddler, Penguin, Harley Quinn, who else? Poison Ivy. He uses more of the traditional stuff rather than newer villains. And he just writes great stories. Most of his work are individual one-shot stories, which are fun. They're just fun to sit down and read. So enjoyable. And then Heart of Hush, which is his really only big main story arc, was just fantastic. He understands the relationship of Catwoman and Batman better than most people. Just fantastic writer, great run, really enjoyed it. I'm looking forward to his Streets of Gotham stuff and Gotham Sirens. Paul Dini, you are the man. God bless you. Moving on. Number 3 on my top 20 favorite comic book runs of all time is going to be George Perez's run on Wonder Woman. It's going to be Gods Immortal, Challenge of the Gods, Beauty and the Beast, almost fell there, and Destiny Calling. Shame not all of his stuff was put into trade. I think there was a few issues that weren't, but George Perez, let me just say, this guy's an artist, and now he's writing something, so that's saying something. But look, before I get into the title itself, George Perez is probably pound for pound, and I'm using a fighting term, but pound for pound, probably my favorite artist. Jim Lee, art is beautiful. I love how he draws Batman. Ed Benz is just, he does a great job with, characters on a whole. But both of them have their things that I don't like about them. They're some of my favorites, but George Perez, he just does everything perfectly. He makes even the most ridiculous characters look good. He could take someone like Ambush Bug and make him look cool. His art is absolutely fantastic. Probably, without a doubt, the best artist. I'm going to say this. Best artist of all time. He's the standard. I compare everything else to. So, with that said, George Perez jumps onto the Wonder Woman title. And basically he says, George Perez sits down and he takes Wonder Woman. Here's my D&D dice. He goes, Wonder Woman, you beautiful little thing, I'm going to take you and make you good again. Throws her on the ground and makes her good. See, you got to understand this. Wonder Woman during the 60s kind of went downhill. And then Dennis O'Neil tried to bring her back, but it didn't quite work the way he wanted. But then again, when do you ever want a comic not to work work out bad? But anyway, Wonder Woman just wasn't working with fans. She just became not good. Wonder Woman is one of the best characters in comic books of all time. A lot of people dispute that Wonder Woman is not that great. Wonder Woman is great, and here's why. George Perez took Wonder Woman and really just remastered her. He took the character, made her just a better character, personally, and as Wonder Woman herself. Another thing he did is he changed up Wonder Woman's universe while still keeping it traditional. He gave us great new insight on the Amazons, on the gods and the mythos. That's one thing I loved, is he really focused on the mythos of Wonder Woman, where she was from, her beliefs and all that. It reintroduced a lot of favorite characters like the cheetah, and he really did such a good job at hitting everything on the nail with Wonder Woman here. Whether it be Wonder Woman as a person, Wonder Woman as a hero, Wonder Woman as an Amazon, whether it be her enemies, whether it be the gods, her supporting characters, her religion, her family, or the Amazons themselves, he just made everything great. I dare anyone to read these and not enjoy them, unless you're like somehow a Wonder Woman hater. My friend Doug, and you can ask Doug this, although I don't know how you're going to, but Doug, I dared him, and he didn't like Wonder Woman at all. I don't think he didn't like her, but he didn't care for her. And I said, read this, and I showed a Gods Immortal. I said, read this, and you will get hooked on Wonder Woman. He said, I don't think it's going to happen. I just don't care about her. I said, read it. Trust me. Read it. Heck, I'll throw in Volume 2. Just read these, and you'll get hooked. And he got hooked. He enjoyed Wonder Woman. He thought it was great. This is the best Wonder Woman stuff. With Challenge of Artemis and Contest on my favorite Wonder Woman stories, individually, my favorite Wonder Woman stuff is George Perez. Beautiful. Pick it up. It's 4 volumes. You can't go wrong. It'll cost you, what, $20 each, but it's worth it. It really is. Wonder Woman. George Perez. One of my favorite runs of all time. So let me just organize these. Coming in at number 2, and I'm going to take some time with number 2 because number 2 is something near and dear to my heart. Number 2 on my favorite comic book runs of all time would be Marv Wolfman, George Perez, The New Teen Titans, which consists of the Archive series, which there's 4 volumes. So down Archive series, Terra Incognito, The Judas Contract, Terra Trigon, and Who is Donna Troy. There's other stuff that they did, but not everything was collected in trade. Shame on DC. When I think of comics, traditionally, as comics, I think Teen Titans, the new Teen Titans. These have to be some of the best comic book stories I have ever read. You can write that down. It is true. These are some of the best. What can you say about a title that was the best title of the 80s? This beat out everything DC had. Batman, Superman, Justice League, Wonder Woman, everything. This even beat out all Marvel had. Spider-Man, X-Men in particular, which was the best running comic in Marvel. This was the best comic of the 80s, and rightfully so. This is some of the best stuff I've ever read. George Perez and Marv Wolfman is probably the best team of writers. They, art-wise, idea-wise, character-wise, beautiful. If you have not picked this stuff up, I pity you. I really do. first of all, they take the Titans, which is like Justice League Juniors, and they make them step outside the shadow of their mentors, of the Justice League, and make them a formidable team. You know, when you think Titans, you think, well, no, I don't think Justice League Juniors. I think the Titans. They are a fantastic team. They take Robin, Wonder Girl, Kid Flash as 3 out of the 4 originals, and they team them up with Cyborg, Raven, Starfire, and Changeling, or as most people know him as Beast Boy. And they just made such a great team, has such a family feel to this. This feels like a family. They love each other, they care about each other, they look after each other. The Justice League is my favorite team of all time. They're not a family, they're a team. This is a family and a team. Great stories, absolutely fantastic, near and dear to my heart. And, you know, I read this stuff during some hard times, and it just made me smile all the time. You know, I don't really get openly emotional about comics. I'll read a comic and I'll say, oh, that's touching. You could be the toughest guy in the world, but you read something that touches you, you're going to get a little emotional. When I was reading Donna Troy, Who Was Donna Troy, it got a little teary-eyed. This was emotional. It got like a loving feel from the characters. Just on a whole, fantastic thing. Family stuff. Really, it's a lot of money. It's a lot of money. I had to buy this stuff over time, but it's worth picking up. And let me just say, this is not cheap, but it's worth it. This stuff is worth it. The Titans, my second favorite comic book of all time. Comic book run. Just, beautiful. You cannot go wrong with them. So with that said, I'm going to put these down. And boom, 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 boom. That said, let's do number 1. You're going to have to keep this low. Okay, there. So that you guys can't see it because you could probably peek. Coming at number 1 are my favorite comic book runs of all time. And I'm going to spend some time talking about this. Coming at number 1 would be Chuck Dixon's run on Batman, which starts with my favorite story of all time, my favorite Batman story of all time, and my favorite story of all time in general, Batman Nightfall. That's when Chuck Dixon really came into fold as the main writer of Batman. Then we move on to Batman Prodigal, which is the first time we see Dick Grayson as Batman. Batman Contagion, great story, better than I thought it was going to be. Batman Legacy, one of the hardest to find Batman stories, worth it though, really good. And then Chuck Dixon kind of starts to leave the title during the No Man Land series, which he was joined with a lot of other writers, but and I know it wasn't necessarily his idea, but I believe he was the most consistent writer out of the bunch. I would have to check, but I believe he's the most consistent writer out of the bunch. And then after No Man's Land, Chuck kind of leaves, and I think he goes over into Marvel, but I'm going to just put No Man's Land down because it's so freaking bulky. So much stuff to hold. But Chuck Dixon's run on Batman. This is Batman for me. This stuff right here. This is Batman. The best Batman stories I've read. You know, I've been saying with a lot of people that they understand Batman, they understand the character, maybe him personally, maybe the atmosphere, but no one understands Batman, to me, like Chuck Dixon. He writes Batman as a character amazingly, making him a hero, making him a detective, making him a fighter, while also making him human. So Chuck Dixon really knows the character of Batman. Chuck Dixon really knows Gotham. He knows the enemies. Every single enemy in here is my favorite portrayal. My favorite portrayal is Joker. My favorite portrayal is Two-Face. Poison Ivy. Mr. Zsasz. You know, you can name any of them. Bane, where Bane shows up here. Scarecrow. Anyone, my favorite portrayal is in here. Lady Shiva. Catwoman. He really knows the villains. He knows all of the supporting characters. Commissioner Gordon, Oracle, Nightwing, Robin. You know, even the fucking dog. Ace. He knows Batman, and he knows him perfectly. I can't say that enough. My favorite stuff was reading his runs. I mean, I never got more excited for something than Nightfall, because when Nightfall was actually one of the first things I've ever read with comics. I mean, when it comes down to my history with Batman, I watched obviously the cartoon when I was a kid, and then I watched the movies too. But the first issues I read were during the Nightfall time, and so I guess I have some kind of personal connection with it. I don't know. But when I started rereading comics again a few years ago, starting to get back into the way I am now, Nightfall was one of the first things I picked up, and I got Volume 1 and 2, and I was just ecstatic. And I couldn't find Volume 3 anywhere, and I looked everywhere. And when I finally found it, it was like WrestleMania, man. It was like Hulk Hogan, Andre the Giant, Rock Austin. You know, it was great. It was nothing bad about this stuff. And then Chuck Dixon moves on and he does Prodigal, which was, I think, a really great interpretation of Dick Grayson as Batman. Very nicely done. It's definitely one of my favorite Batman stories. And then Contagion, which I thought was going to be shit, but it surprised me. It's a really fun story. Legacy, which was really hard to find. The last rare Batman story I had to get, which, you know, it goes for like hundreds of dollars online. I found it in the store for only, what, $17? Not bad, but great action, great story, really suspense, and then, you know, no man's land, and everything he does in between. Anything he does Batman is just beautiful, but his run on Batman was just absolutely perfect to me. I would recommend this to anyone. You know, when I think Batman, I think of this. This is also the most rereadable stuff to me. I can sit down and read Nightfall over and over and over again. I can read Contagion, Legacy, you know, Prodigal, any of them, over and over and over again. So, yeah. Chuck Dixon, you're the man. I would really love to see Chuck Dixon back as writer of Batman. What I would like to see is Chuck Dixon on the title of Batman, Grant Morrison on, Chuck Dixon on, Chuck Dixon as the main writer of Batman, with Grant Morrison thrown in there every once in a while, although Grant would leave. But Chuck Dixon as the main writer, Paul Dini doing his, like, detective and, City of Gotham stories, and then I would like Jeff Loeb and Chuck Dixon to go back and do some early adventures of Batman, like maybe with Jason Todd and stuff. That would be a dynamic Batman team for me, but Chuck Dixon's run on Batman, best comic book run of all time, for me at least. I can't say that enough. I recommend picking this stuff up. Although it could be hard because Prodigal and Legacy they're like getting kicked in the ass. It's hard to find these stuff. Prodigal, I know, goes from like $40 to $50 online, although sometimes it goes cheap. Legacy, you're just not going to find, but you might as well look. So I hope you guys enjoyed this countdown. I'm going to do more countdowns like this in parts and in general, but those are my top 20 favorite comic book runs of all time. They can always change, except for this favorite comic book run of all time. Never will change, nor will the Titans. But in general, I hope you guys enjoyed this. Again, I'm not saying these are the best comic book runs, although I'm sure a lot of them are. But these are my favorite, and with that said, if you want to comment, even do some video response. Do your own favorite. It doesn't even have to be your favorite 20 comic book runs. It could be top 10 favorites. It can be 5 favorites. You can video respond. So with that said, I'm going to end this video here. This is Andrew saying peace out for now.